Job, Peter.
Job, Pete.
How we doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah, me too. I'm doing phenomenal.
Job.
So yeah, welcome to Demons Within episode
8?
I think it's 9.
8. Anger and resentment.
Is it 8? I mean, it doesn't matter. Someday we're going to be looking back like, remember that time you couldn't remember if it was episode 8 when we're going to be on episode like 374. But today is a good day. Every day is a good day.
It's a great day.
Every day is a good day, but we have been having this like intermittent audio issue.
Yes, not my fault.
And it was crazy because I couldn't replicate the issue. So the first episode and some other content was dropping and we would get a couple messages like, yo, I can't fucking hear Pete. Like his audio's mad quiet and it's crackling and shit. And I couldn't replicate it. And if you remember, like I would watch it on my phone, your phone, my parents' phones, my brother's phone. I would watch it on various laptops.
And it sounded good, right?
On TVs, and it was serviceable. Like, the audio has been an issue, but it wasn't, like, I would never purposely post content that has, like, excruciatingly bad audio.
Yeah.
So I was
I
like,
don't want that.
It was almost, like, insulting that people thought I was like, oh, yeah, this sounds like this. Let me just post it. Like, what do they think? I'm a fucking bum? I was a bum when I was drinking, not no mo.
Nope.
So anyways, I was doing so much research, but I couldn't replicate the problem. And I didn't even know how to ask the question in like Google. So I was watching YouTube videos. I was reading audio forums. I read the manual for our audio equipment recorder cover to cover like 5 times. And what it turned out to be was something I originally thought it could be, but I thought it was so obvious that there's no way it could be that.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And it's like, so going forward, we should have none. I'm ecstatic about that.
You is?
Because I just devote so much time to just like trying to level out the audio, but it was like a painstakingly...
Yeah, you did a lot of work.
It was insane. I was spending more time trying to adjust audio levels than I was actually editing videos or writing fucking content.
Yeah, shows how dedicated you are.
But it's crazy too, because it's the type of thing where like if like somebody like Fuzz, Mike, who's a genius audio engineer, he's like Grammy nominated sound engineer. If we like had his help, he'd probably take 5 seconds and be like, oh, this is it. He'd fix it. It would sound fucking amazing. And he'd be like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, shout out to Fuzz, you is.
Yeah, Fuzz is a legend. I haven't talked to him yet, but I'd love to talk to him. He's like my boy. So yeah, that is huge news because as somebody who prides himself on accepting the things that I can't control, I was ripping my hair out. My blood was boiling. I was literally devoting like an hour a day to mindfulness strictly based around the audio issues. It was just preposterous. So yeah, we got that.
We got that solved now.
The only and then, I've been doing this thing, the Milpy Writes News Hour, which I actually just did it when we first got all the equipment. I mean, it's thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and not even including the editing software. And I just was playing around with it, and I had fun doing it. Mm-hmm. So I was posting them, but it's very time consuming. Like one episode of the News Hour takes like 5 times longer to edit. I also... because it started out as something for fun, like there's so many graphics, like some of them definitely I don't have permission to use. Mm-hmm. So I was advertising it as every Wednesday, but I'm just going to kind of do them periodically now. Like if there's ever some like really, really like big and important breaking news involving mental health or alcoholism or anything like that, I will definitely do one. But for now, it's like going forward, it's just going to be here and there. Yeah. They're things we can't even really throw a couple bucks on it to promote them.
Yeah, it's too long.
So it's like the cost benefit, the cost effectiveness of it. It's like it's the most time consuming content, but it gets like the least amount of views. Yeah. Like I think on YouTube, like some of them have like 10 views. Yeah. We do though on Instagram, they get more, but it's just like, I don't know. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's time consuming.
Yeah, it's time consuming. Yeah. And right now, I mean, this is a grassroots operation. Me and you right now are doing everything. Yeah. I mean, we have been making connections though, and we got some powerful, well-connected people. Sounds like I'm talking about the mafia.
Yeah, we got some powerful, well-connected people. Yeah, we do.
But now we do. Like the people we're going to start working with are just huge. Yeah. They're influential. They have connections, and I'm almost honored that they want to work with us, and it's going to really help us help us spread the message. Agreed. That's what we do. And it's like the message that I'm spreading. I want this to blow up. Like I want to be able to make in my career. And I think the trajectory we're on now, it's really gaining momentum.
Yep.
But with all that being said, I do this because it's my purpose now. It's my passion. Like, and I put everything I have into it. I put every penny I have into it right now.
Yep.
And if I die penniless because I've done that, I'll at least be like, I tried.
Oh, we're going to get it.
Yeah. God will be like, my son, you are penniless and you died and you helped no one. You helped not one soul. I'll be like, well, God, I fucking tried. And then I'll die peacefully. And it'll probably banish me to hell.
Well, we've already got people reaching out to us saying that we've helped them.
No, I know. We've had a ton of people. We've had a ton of people. Like the one video I posted, some like random elderly lady. I want to be respectful.
Yeah.
She's just old. And she was like, she's like, I have moved on. And I was like, emoji.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good
That's
stuff.
awesome.
So anyways, little housekeeping for you. But today we are talking about anger and resentment. And one of my favorite quotes about anger and resentments from Russell Brand, who is
I love this quote.
He's in recovery himself. He's been sober for like almost 2 decades, I think. But he says resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so accurate.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's anger and resentment. It's just hurting you. And what's the point of holding on to resentment?
I don't know about you, but resentment was a major reason why why I drank the way I did.
Yeah, me too. Resentment is one of the worst things to have. And it's one thing that is completely on you.
100%.
Like anger can be triggered by something else. Like nobody here, like you have to allow yourself to be angry, but anger in itself's not bad. How you express and deal with anger can be bad. And like if somebody cuts you off in traffic, that person's actions probably caused you anger. But
if it was my dad, he probably tried following you and killing you.
Yeah, he would get out of the car and curb stomp you. But especially if he was on the oranges.
Inside joke.
Yeah. That was the best time ever. Your dad's the man.
He is. You as Pop.
Job. Pete's Pop. But yeah, so like resentment though is purely within you. Like you're resenting something from the past for like, and all it does is eat away at you. But anger and resentment are so powerful if you don't have it under control. Like this episode's about anger. We're going to talk about anger and how to deal with it and how it's affected us. Yeah. But I do think I want to start with shame. So shame to me, shame is the emotional manifestation of alcohol to me. Because alcohol causes shame, but alcohol is also a numbing drug. It numbs you of emotions. It numbs you of everything. It numbs you of insecurities. It numbs your anxiety. And when I feel shame to me is a numbing emotion. When I would feel shame, I would feel nothing else.
But shame?
Shame. However, the one thing that could overpower my shame would be anger. So if I was feeling shame all day and I was super down, and then something pissed me off, I would forget the shame and I would just be anger. I'd be ruminating, and like if it got bad enough, I would either lash out or just start drinking again to deal with the anger.
Of course. Yeah, I had some things happen to me when, I was younger, and I just would not forgive this person. And this person's done so much for me, but we just didn't have the best relationship when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I resented it for so long to this day. And I'm working on forgiveness with it, but that was the trigger to my drinking. And I used it to be a victim.
Yeah.
I drank to be a victim. Yeah. And say, it gave me a reason to drink.
Mm-hmm.
The resentment I had towards this person. But now I'm even just being with you and learning more about this stuff. And doing therapy and all that. It's going away. But it really made me hit my rock bottom.
It does. And it's, and that's the thing you said, forgiveness. Forgiveness is like the number one way out of resentment. But resentment, it's most of the time you're resenting somebody or mad at somebody for just perceived injustices.
Yeah.
But even if there is an actual injustice that was acted upon you, holding on to the resentment is still bad for you.
It's so bad.
It's not bad for anyone else except you. Resentment is the number one reason why people relapse.
Yeah.
And it's why it's harped upon so much in 12-step groups and counseling. Like you got to let go of resentments. And they do whatever they can to teach you how to get out of resenting people. because the truth is, like, not everybody has an anger or resenting problem, but anger and resentment is a problem for everyone in a way, you know? It's just never the way to go. Resentment keeps us tethered to the past, prevents us from fully embracing the present and building a healthier future. It's just the worst. In Demons Within, the novel, Bill Dillard, he deals with a lot of the same kind of anger and resentment that I dealt with. That's most of the stuff in Bill's character arc and his personality that are based on me and my thinking is the anger and resentment part. I think I use a quote, I'm paraphrasing one of my own quotes here from the book, but I said how anger is one of the only offensive and defensive weapons, because when you're angry at somebody and you lash out, you're taking offense towards them. You're taking action against them, but it's a defense mechanism because you shut down and you push people away. And I think I compared it to like a musket, like a rifle with a bayonet, whereas your anger can pick people off from a distance. When you're just lashing out at people, you can do it on social media, text, whatever, just talking shit and pissed off at people. Yeah. But then it's a defense mechanism, whereas if they get too close, that bayonet stabs them and pushes them away. So I thought that was a pretty good metaphor.
Yeah, obviously I remember you getting angry a lot. What from resentment, like what did you resent that would make you start drinking?
Well, my resentments were always irrational. So I would have some type of interaction with somebody where at the time it barely registered in my brain. And then like anywhere from like 12 hours to a week later, I would suddenly recall that interaction and I would take offense to it.
Oh.
And I would wish I handled it differently or wish I was more assertive.
And ruminate on it.
And then I'll get pissed. And a lot of these happen in romantic relationships. But it was really anything with family members, with friends, and it was just like absolutely insane. And a lot of that had to do with some other underlying disorder, like mental cognitive disorders. I was having like cognitive distortions. So that was an issue too that I had to deal with. And that's why, I take a multifaceted approach to dealing with all these problems. But for anger, so resentment is something from the past. Well, they both kind of deal with the past, but for me, like resentment has always been something that you can't let go, where anger is something that just fills you up and like you either act on it or you don't, or you deal with it in a healthy manner or you deal with it in a destructive manner.
Yeah. I feel like you relate more to anger as far as what I know about you. I would say you're a little bit more angry. I don't think when I drink, I would get very angry towards the end. But having PTSD, and I learned one of the main things that I needed to do was go get help and talk about it.
Having an outlet for your anger where you can just talk about it.
And instead of just consistently pushing that resentment down, it gets angrier and angrier and angrier until it just blows up. You drink and you go off on a tangent.
Yeah, that's so for me, I've had an anger issue my whole life. Actually, in high school, I would just always be blowing up. And I remember my parents brought me to an anger management specialist. And I literally got so pissed off, I left. And that was it's sad. Like I put everyone through so much. But then as far as drinking, so the way I would deal with anger, I would bottle it up until it exploded out with me.
Yeah, me
or
too.
I would numb it with alcohol. But the problem with that is my alcohol would lower my inhibitions. It would cloud up my judgment. And it would distort like the things I was actually mad at. So I was getting mad at like things that weren't even real.
Yeah, it distorts reality.
And I was so aggressive. And that's just a huge problem. It's like in that most of my issues stemmed from anger. Like almost every time I was arrested while drunk, it was some angry action of just like either even like getting in a fight or just breaking shit. And it's just a huge issue. It's a huge problem.
What are you doing now to cope with the anger?
Well, now it's so many things. It's like mindfulness is huge. That's what we always talk about. It's being vulnerable. So I was reading this book. It's called Men's Work. I just started reading it, but what it says, and it's very true. It was kind of eye-opening, is like nowadays the traits associated with masculinity, or toxic masculinity, is like the media likes to call it.
Yeah.
It's like sort of aggression. It's anger. It's stuff like that. It's just kind of even like being an asshole, standing up for yourself, not being nice, not being agreeable. Those are kind of considered toxic masculinity, but that I don't actually think they're toxic if you do it in like a respectful way. If you're leading yourself with integrity, then like I don't think it's a problem. Yeah. But what this book was saying is how nowadays, masculinity is a choice. You don't have to, like back in the day, you had to exhibit those masculine traits just to survive.
Yeah.
Like you needed the man of the household. You needed the aggressive person, the protective person. And you don't need that anymore. Because, I mean, you can be the most passive person in the world and you can live a long, healthy, successful life.
Yeah.
And I think that was always a big problem with me because I just was repressing these more toxic, well, I don't even like saying toxic because they're not if you handle them well, but I was repressing these like masculine traits of aggression and of assertiveness.
You say repression, you mean pushing
them back down because I thought it was like a problem.
Yeah.
But now I've sort of realized and I've learned that I can integrate those parts of my personality into who I am, and it's helped so much in dealing with anger. It's like, it's okay to be angry as long as I express it in a healthy way that doesn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
It's okay to be assertive. Like, I got so used to not being assertive that in the instances where I did become assertive, it felt like I was being overly aggressive.
Yeah.
When really to the other person I was being assertive with was probably just like, okay, this guy doesn't want to like do this, or this guy doesn't agree with this. And it was like, fine, because they were just whatever.
Well, you could be assertive about what you want and very direct.
Yeah, and assertive is healthy. I mean, there's literally like psychologists, seminars, self-help groups and books that strictly deal with being more assertive.
In business, you got to be assertive all the time.
Yeah, 100%.
You have to be direct. You can't as my dad would say it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing too, like people pleasing, passive aggression. These all come from a lack of being assertive and a lack of dealing with anger in a positive way.
I think if you do it right, if you're assertive, you get to the point quicker. Resentment is just something I have the most experience with.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on it. Again, you're further ahead than me. I'm 2 months sober.
Well, I'm still working on it.
I mean, but no, you're an inspiration.
Thank you, Peter.
But I would classify resentment as the devil. It brought me to my rock bottom. It made me play the victim role. It fucked up my work. So resentment for me led to anger when I drank.
Yes.
Because I would bottle it all down, then I would drink, and I'll tell you one thing, it fucked up my business too. And I'm a businessman. I got some good things going on, but the reason why I haven't hit my pinnacle yet is because of resentment, because of anger, and because of the alcohol. And I know I just can't have the alcohol in my life anymore because it distorts my reality and makes me a maniac.
Yeah, it makes you a maniac. It makes the same with me. And I mean, resentment is essentially a form of anger, but it's an anger based on past experiences. And one of the reasons of many reasons why it's so negative and literal poison for people trying to live a life of recovery.
Yeah.
Is because the resentments, you're dwelling on the past and you're dwelling on a time when you most likely were drinking. And it just revives these old thoughts and feelings that have a profound impact on your heart, your mind, your soul. And eventually it oftentimes, if you can't process the resentment and just let it go, you find yourself turning back to the old things that used to numb the resentment, because it's just such a shitty feeling. It's like when you're in the throes of some heavy resentments, it's impossible to focus on anything else.
Yep.
It is. It's just impossible to focus on things. And I mean, it's literally like in AA, one of the steps is you are just writing down all your resentments. You know what I mean? And like I had so many.
Really?
So many. Yeah, I resented everything. And it, like you said earlier, it's a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And there's like justified resentments are a thing. Like you said, like, you know, you had some issues in the past. So like you had a kind of a valid reason to feel it. But just of feeling it and never dealing with it with anything other than repression or numbing with alcohol and drugs is just not the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not the way to do it. And they just feed off each other, because resentment is a form of anger. And resentment makes you angry. It's just like a nonstop back and forth where both sides of the tug of war are bad. There's no winner with anger and resentment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I can relate 100%.
Yeah. And another form of resentment that's specifically felt by alcoholics and addicts, which is just one of the saddest things. It's like a paradox. It's like an oxymoron. Like when I was getting bad, people knew that I needed help, and they knew that I didn't want to drink. They knew that I had all these dreams and ambitions, but I was losing control.
Yeah.
But I had so many resentments. I was like, I'm going to keep drinking just to spite these people.
Yes.
It was self-sabotaging in the most psychotic way ever. It's so delusional. It's like, oh, to get back at these people that I resent, I'm going to punish myself and drink myself to death.
Yeah.
Or to jail or to an institution. And it's insane. Nobody can look at that scenario and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing.
It's one of the dumbest things ever. And it's just very prevalent. But yeah, I mean, the fact is though, there's a way out. And, we're going to discuss ways to deal with anger and resentment in a little bit. But, painting a picture of anger and resentment and how it negatively affects people, not just people in recovery, it just literally affects the human race. It affects the world. I mean, we could probably have like a 24-hour podcast just going over anger and resentment and our experiences. Like some of my experiences with anger turned out to be like funny things. They were destructive, but like, I remember in Oneonta the one time, I was just so mad at my girlfriend at the time, and we were at her apartment, and I was just like losing my mind, and she had to call the cops, and my anger just consumed me so much. The cops were having a real struggle getting me in the cop car, and I was able to put my feet on the curb and brace myself, and I was screaming, "I will not surrender."
Yes. I remember hearing that looking out the window.
"I will not surrender." And then the one cop reached for the pepper spray, and I was like, I'm good. I surrender. And then I don't know. And like, I don't even remember what happened with that. Oh, actually, I do remember. Just an overall embarrassing experience for the whole family, because I had court that I didn't go to. I was like on the lam. And I remember like people were at Radio City, and the cops thought I still lived there.
Yeah.
Because my name was on the paperwork for that apartment that I lived at the previous year. And I remember Lexi, she was like, yo, the cops came and they were looking for you. And I was like, fuck. So I was just like, I was like laying low. This was the last 2 weeks of my senior year. And then on graduation, I graduated, and then I finally turned myself in.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, well, you got to stay in jail for like one night or for like a few hours until you can pay this fine. And I had no money. It was the end of college. I was penniless. I spent all my money at college. So I had to wait for my dad to drive out and pick me up to bring me home from school and bail me out of jail. It was like just a preposterous thing. It was like, all right, I'm so happy I graduated college, but I'm also sitting in a jail cell waiting for my dad to come pay to get me out. So, and that's the thing. It's like in hindsight, I can tell that story in a funny way. And like, it's like there's humorous elements to it, but when you think about the actual situation, you just look at it objectively, it's terrible.
Yeah. Like,
what's wrong with me, or what was wrong with me?
Yeah, I would drink, I mean, it's not even funny, but when I would drink, I would become an angry driver. I'd be going flying down the highway, going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. One time I lost control of my father's car, smashed it into a tree. I'm lucky I'm alive.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. And that's, for you especially, that really shows the spiral that you went through, because when we first met, we became friends. Like, we've known each other for like our whole lives, but we really became tight, like best friends 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I always remember that was before both of our problems really manifested into a way of like, yeah, I'm probably an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But you were so good about not drinking and driving.
Yeah.
And then I remember a couple of years ago when we would get up every now and then, and you were telling me, what's going on, and you were drinking and driving. Yeah. I was like, that's not like you.
Yeah.
That's a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. Yeah. But at that time too, I don't know, I might've been okay at that time. My alcoholism for the vast majority of my life presented as a lot of ups and downs. Like I would have like a couple weeks where I was just absolutely terrible. And that's when I did, looking back, that's when I was full of anger and resentment, when I suppressed it enough that I couldn't contain it anymore. But then I would go like 2.5, 3, 4 months of not drinking on my own, but I wasn't doing any work. So I was a dry drunk, and I would just, the anger would start again and it would build up, and then I'd go back out drinking.
That's exactly what happened to me when I went out west. The resentment I had for a specific person, I was so angry and I wanted to play the victim role. I drove out there, and again, like I've said in the previous podcast, is when I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
I was drinking what is it, the half bottles of Fireball in the morning.
Yeah. I was doing that too. That was just like the craziest thing. I always used to, they call it the yets, I think, in a lot of recovery programs, where it's like, well, at least I didn't do this yet. At least I'm not this kind of guy.
I think I've checked all those boxes now.
I actually eventually did. Because like I just said, like most of the time I would just be, my active alcoholism or my active problem drinking time periods were not that long. They just would be very destructive. And most of them too, well, I mean, every relationship I ever had was affected by my drinking, but some were a lot more obvious than others. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of times, especially in my early 30s, where I wasn't really dating anybody, like there was the only true victim of my bad behavior was me. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't really care. I didn't realize how harmful I was being. I was like, yeah, I got a drinking problem, but like I got an anger problem. I got a drinking problem. But I'm not really hurting anyone except myself, so who cares?
Yeah.
But again, that's not true, because I also was indirectly hurting my loved
family,
ones.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but I still was never drinking all day. A lot of times I would drink on like a Friday night, but I would just get so fucked up, and a lot of times I would stay up
the whole
till
week,
Saturday morning, and then I would just not drink for the rest of the week. But it was just not normal drinking. Like I have no moderation button.
Yeah. No, I think I was more of a steady drinker.
Well, that's what I became.
Yeah, I became it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, like the rock bottom that I led to, it was nothing but anger and resentment. I had irrational anger, irrational resentment. I was alone. I just was justifiably kicked out of the house I was living in with my ex because I was insane. There was no way that was sustainable, and I was causing so much pain to her and me and my whole family. But that I had so much resentment over that. Because my life, I had no life when I entered that relationship, and everything was in her name. All the stuff we were sharing at the time is stuff she worked hard for. And then when that was over, I was alone, and I blamed her. Mm-hmm. I blamed everybody. I blamed her gym. And those people fucking, I don't like them. It's like, I think they're a cult, but they're all good people.
Yeah.
They were always so welcome to me and kind, despite my perception of them as a fucking cult. They're just a cult. They're not a cult, okay? I'm going to make sure I clarify. They're not a cult. They're good people. They're good people.
You feeling a little resentment right now?
Fuck them. I hate them. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go drink and fight them all. No, I don't feel resentment towards any of them, but I did.
Yeah.
I did. And now I can joke about it. And like a lot of my sense of humor is a lot of hyperbole and exaggeration. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in that episode when I was comparing that girl to Ray Finkel, like that was a massive exaggeration. She's nothing like that. She's not obsessed to a degree. But
such a legend.
Yeah, but like, so anyways, that's what my resentment was seething to the point where my uncle was like, had a connection and like works with this person's family. Mm-hmm. And I was texting him like, if you fucking still communicate with them, you're dead to me. And this is my uncle, who's like one of the closest people in the world to me. He's my godfather. He helps me immensely in everything. He's always there for me. And I was telling him that, and like he came over one day and I was drunk as fuck and I flipped out on him. I was screaming out the front door, Fredo, like the Godfather. Michael Corleone's brother was a traitor. I was just like, Fredo. Just an absolute psycho with no connection to real life. And it was all bred from anger and all bred from resentment. And again, my resentments were almost never justified. They were all perceived injustices, perceived attacks on me that weren't real. And then like, I know some of yours are justified, but it doesn't mean, a justified resentment doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can be angry. It doesn't mean you should drink.
Yeah.
it means you should just go get help.
Yeah, just go get help in some way. Which now I think it's a good time to sort of go on like, all right, so we're talking about how angry we were. And we're telling funny stories about how fucking stupid we are. But how do you deal with anger? So I think we'll touch on that. So one of the first things, a lot of this stuff, I mean, everything goes together. All the help, the tips and the practices we've talked about in almost every episode deals with all these emotions in some way. And these aren't the only way. I never want to come off as I'm preaching like this is the how to do it. This is the way you have to live. This is what you have to implement. Because it's not, there's a lot of ways to deal with things.
Yep.
The stuff I talk about in all my content is the stuff that worked for me. And that's what everyone needs to realize. I don't know how to tell I never want to come off like I'm telling someone how to live.
No.
But the first thing that I do now, if I'm starting to feel anger, is I examine the like underlying emotions that might be causing that anger. Because a lot of times you're just sad or you're hurt or you're fearful of something.
Yeah. Fearful is key.
Yeah. So I kind of examine that, and a lot of times when you realize the underlying emotion, like if I'm fearful, if I'm like afraid of being embarrassed because I have some engagement coming up, I might start getting angry and resentful at the people that are making me have to do this engagement, this like speaking engagement or something. So once I kind of realize, well, that's just based on a fear of embarrassment, then I'll work on that embarrassment or the fear of embarrassment. Like, all right, what's the worst that could happen? I don't do that well. All right, then the next engagement, I'll fucking kill it.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I'm working on my fear of embarrassment and I'm not angry at all. I'm just working on another thing that needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the next one, so that goes hand in hand with being mindful and present. Like, if you are just feeling anger, resentment, if you can't distinguish the underlying emotion, just be with it. Don't act on it, but like just sit there and meditate, breathe, observe it, and just kind of let yourself feel it. Sometimes anger just needs to be felt in order to be let go of. Just let it roll over you. Sleep on it. A lot of times if I'm starting to feel a little bit angry about something, if I just sleep on it, next morning I don't care about it. That's very helpful.
My biggest emotion, I think you said, was fear. And the way that I deal with fear now is attacking it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that I'm scared of, I do it. Or I try to.
Yeah. Sorry, I just hit my vape.
It's all good.
Well, that's what you have to do. And you have to really examine it. Because another thing is you have to sort of... Something with me, especially because most of my anger and resentments were irrational and they were just things my brain was making up. So I would appear as a victim and I would appear like I'm the good one and someone else is the bad one. So I would actually sort of look at my role in the situation. I would see how much did I actually contribute to this situation that I'm feeling angry and resentful over. And most of the time I was the main contributor to it. A big thing, like even so, like a lot of people, including me in the past, I would get mad if somebody was maybe talking shit about me or anything like that. And the way I frame that now is like, generally speaking, if somebody doesn't like you or disagrees with you or is talking shit, it's because they see something in you that they don't like. And who cares?
Yeah, you can't do anything about it.
You can't. And especially if it's like a false impression. So they see something in you that's not actually real. That's not how you feel about yourself. That's on them. Let them be mad at you or let them talk shit to you or whatever. It's just like a false impression is a false impression. It's not truth. And the fact is, it's very unrealistic to expect other people to see you as you see yourself.
Yeah. I have no fear of that. I do not care what people think about me. I go for it.
Yeah. And that's one of the most liberating things and one of the best ways to just like not have so much anger, because I'm doing that now.
Yeah.
And like with this stuff we're doing, like really putting ourselves out there. And like, I know for a fact, if I started doing this a few years ago, which never would have worked out because I would have at some point started drinking again. But like if I did before I was working on myself, like there's a lot of people that know us who are now watching our content or just aware of it. And I bet you a lot of them are just like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
Because it's just so different. And that probably I would have just started like coming up with these scenarios where some of our friends are talking shit about us and making fun of us, which probably isn't even the case anyways. But even if it is, who cares? Because it's definitely probably a shock to a lot of people that have known me for a long time. But in even if they are, or if anyone is, because like I said, we are putting ourselves out there. Like, well, most of our videos get thousands of views. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, look at these losers. But it's like, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
It's
and
like,
you found your purpose.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Not like this stuff is not even work to me. It's fun and it's what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
It's like this is going to be our life.
Yep.
And it's the momentum it's picking up is more than I ever thought it could. And that's the other thing. So it's like, diverting your focus. And I don't want this to come off as like ignoring the anger or ignoring the resentment. But a lot of times, if you just need to quickly get out of that, you have to at some point deal with it. But if you need to just quickly get out of the sort of endless cycle of ruminating on anger and resentment, just divert your attention to gratitude or divert your attention to the positive stuff that's going on.
That's a good point.
So in this scenario I just described, that's probably not even true. But if I knew people were talking shit, people that I like and care about, if I knew they were like really kind of like making fun of me or talking shit, instead of focusing on that, which doesn't matter, it's totally out of my control. Instead of focusing on that, though, I would focus on the momentum we're building. The people who are reaching out and just saying that we're helping them and how they love our content and just never stop doing it. I mean, there's people from day one, like Nick Canizar, like, yo, that guy's just a legend. He's my boy. And
Nick?
Yeah, he just from day one, he was just so supportive.
Yeah, he is.
And I think people don't realize how helpful that is, especially when you're starting out. There was this woman, I should tag her in this when I post it because I never met her, but her name's Allison Marie Conway, I believe. She was one of our first followers. She's got like 10, 12, 15,000 followers, I think. And she's like a recovery coach. And I remember I made this video early on. It was kind of like that. It was like a rap song. Today I escaped anxiety. Yep. And I remember I posted it and it was getting a lot of views. And then that day there was one day where I was a little down and she just happened to comment and share the video. And her message in the comment was just so awesome. And I just was like, yep, this is why I do what I do. So that lady is awesome. Everybody follow her. Everybody follow her. There's people like that out there, and those are the people that you should focus on. Yeah. You know?
That's a really good point to divert your attention.
Yeah.
Because I'm always ruminating with fear based on my condition.
You mentioned earlier forgiveness. That's like one of the biggest ways out or ways to deal with it. If you can treat the people who you're pissed off at or that you resent, no matter if it's justified or unjustified resentment, if you can treat them with compassion and forgiveness, that will eventually turn into letting go of the anger and resentment, because all these things are conditions of unforgiveness. Anger, bitterness, resentment, grief, blame, they're all conditions of unforgiveness. So if you can learn how to forgive, you learn how to forget, and you learn how to move on.
Facts.
So another thing with anger and resentment is especially when you're in active alcoholism, it feels good. A little like everything.
It's so powerful.
That's the thing. Like you feed off it. Like it's a lot of times too. It's like you kind of feel like, all right, the anger and the resentment. Like I don't want to let go of it because I'll feel like I'm losing a part of myself. Yeah, and it feels good, and it's just like it has an almost magnetic pull, and it's hard to let go, especially if you don't have control, like me, or like I didn't. I used to not have control. So
that was dope.
It's kind of like don't be a channel for your anger, or channel it. I mean, there's so many ways. If you Googled how to deal with anger and resentment, you'll get like 8,000 tips because it's such a prevalent issue in society.
Yeah, but it's really about doing the work.
Yeah, you have to do the work. That's how it is with everything.
Yeah.
And all these things, all these issues, all these tips, all these practices, one AA saying is it works if you work it. And that's how this is. And that's, when I got to rock bottom, as I know when you got to rock bottom, I'm comfortable saying for both of us, like, once you were at rock bottom, it's like I'm willing to try anything to pull myself out of this shit. And it just so happens through the course of me learning how to deal with everything and learning how to be a productive member of society, I found my passion, and it just so happened to be the stuff that I was learning. I mean, I've devoted thousands of hours to this stuff. Thousands of hours. I literally wrote a book. I mean, the book's fiction, but the themes are about this. I mean, yeah, it's just my life. So,
did you enjoy this episode?
I hope you did, because if not, you're probably pretty angry right now. You're probably going to resent resentment. Yeah, you're like, wow, I just wasted fucking a half hour, 35 minutes of my life with these two stooges. These two stooges. Yeah, so I don't know. If you're angry, if you're resentful, reach out for help. Practice the things that we talked about. Just learn to forgive. Learn to forgive.
Yeah.
You know? So besides that, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. We got content coming. We got big things in the future.
Yep.
This one's for.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about at some point.
Yeah. This one's for raises awareness and brings value to the mental health community through publishing content, books, event production, and we also build businesses that align with mental health. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to it too, because I'm going to be very much involved in that.
Oh, you will be.
We're very with a lot of crossover for what we do here. So yeah, we got that in store. I don't know. Besides that, it's like I feel like I'm proud of myself. I didn't talk about poop or pee in this episode.
Now you did.
Fuck. Damn it. And I don't want to cut it, because that wouldn't be an integrity move. That wouldn't be a move of integrity. Not at all. So yeah.
Thank you for all the support, guys.
Yeah, thank you for the support. And I just burped. I'm just disgusting. I'm just disgusting. Next week, maybe I'll talk about like throwing up. Or if I don't even bleeding. Okay. What other fucking gross shit can Gregory Millerly talk about? Check out next week. Who knows?
US.
Job, US.